Tonight, 4 down, 3 still standing, but for how long as the electoral body comes into scrutiny? Last Friday, the chief executive officer was fired in a move that did not come as a surprise to many, but baffled Ezra Chiloba. Now, we'll tell you the reason why he was baffled. In the National Assembly, a proposal to reconstitute the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and it's back to the late 90s. Later, we take a look at the cartoon of the week, and on Time Bar, we tell you about the previous 2 commissioners. Sidebar is on IEBC's case tonight. But first, my take. Now, yesterday, the IEBC chairperson, Wafula Chebukati, quipped at the firing of Ezra Chiloba. Now, he jokingly said he left when audit queries regarding the 2017 election were raised. Now, those audit questions being raised over the financial performance of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission are, to say the least, quite alarming. Now, the Auditor General is reporting that the Commission cannot account for close to 10 billion shillings. Money that was spent in various contracts last year. On the face value, now audit questions do not automatically mean that the money has been stolen or lost, but that the sum in question cannot be accounted for. But it's a signal of serious lapse at that body. Now, quite fundamentally, the audit has exposed grave financial discretions. Now, it captures contracts and purchases that cannot be justified. Several items were bought in excess quantities, which means they were not needed. Others were delivered either late or too close to the election, hence were not put into use as presumably intended. The first, failure to provide election materials on the procuring unnecessary items obviously compromised the administration of quality polls. Now, it's not lost that this was part of the contestation during the petition on the outcome of the presidential election. In effect, IEBC is culpable for messing up the election. Secondly, the financial irregularities are horrifying. It is a narrative of a rogue institution that was on a buying spree without due regard to the value for money. Prudence and obviously integrity was sacrificed at the altar of other interests. Now, this is not acceptable. As an institution, IEBC is suffering serious credibility crisis. At governance level, for example, it has only 3 commissioners, and as currently constituted, it cannot deliver on its mandate. Clearly, we have an institution that is not only dysfunctional, but a veritable hub for resource wastage and pilferage, and obviously mismanagement. In the circumstances, it's upon the investigative authorities to dig deeper into the issues, determine the real culprits, and institute criminal proceedings against them. In the words of Catherine Palsifer, an English author and a motivation speaker, at the end of the day, we are accountable to ourselves. Our success is a result of what we do. And my guests tonight, Thomas Letangule, Daisy Amdang, and Peter Kaluma. My name is Ken Mijungu. The hashtag tonight is Sidebar at NTV Kenya. The SMS line is 20686 at Ken Mijungu at NTV Kenya. Sidebar begins right now.
Na wale ambao walihusika na kufanya gharama ya uchaguzi iende juu, hata kama ni nani, hata kama ni staff, hata kama ni commissioner, hata kama ni mimi, nasema hatufai kuwa wa Kenya. Kama ulihusika, unataka uwe ndani, ukae ndani.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, a good place to start, and let's begin with the fundamental question that everyone is asking in the country currently. Is it time that even the 3 remaining commissioners left office? Let me begin with the former commissioner.
Yes.
Is it time?
Well, I don't want to be judgmental on that, but fundamentally, to look at it objectively is to look at whether they are properly constituted. The thing is, the commission is in place. That there is no doubt, because these commissioners were appointed. And the rest of them who resigned have resigned, exposing now the commission. As it is under Article 250 of the Constitution, it says that a commission is composed of 3 to 9 members. But the Operational Act of Parliament, which is the Election Amendment Act of 2016, then fixes the IEBC at 7 commissioners, and then clearly sets the quorum of the commission at 5. So we have an act of parliament, a law which states what the composition of the IEBC should be. It should be 7 with a quorum of 5. The quorum means you cannot conduct business without 5 commissioners. Even if those other commissioners were there and they were sitting outside in the commission and they are not present in the plenary, any decision made by 3 people is invalid.
Which are the examples of such decisions that cannot be taken up by the 3 remaining commissioners?
They cannot do any business of the commission at all.
Example.
For example, any decision of the commission, because the plenary is supposed to sit probably twice a month, and the commission, the plenary quorum is 5. They don't have that quorum.
The examples I'm looking for.
For example, they cannot sack the CEO.
They cannot sack the CEO as 3 commissioners.
They can't. And therefore, that sacking to me is null and void, and I'm sure the courts will.
Why? Because they need to vote. They need to take a vote where there's a ballot.
A quorum is precisely that there must be 5 people to agree on any weighty matter affecting the commission. And another example is, even now, where the country is talking about referendum and the conduct of referendum. If you look at Article 257(4), it says that it is the IEBC, the commission, which will do the referendum. And who is the commission? The commission is composed of commissioners, and the quorum is 5. So as it is now, we are talking about referendum, but we don't have a commission which will do that.
All right, I know Parliament has begun the process of replacing the commissioners, but one more question. The decision such as to hold a by-election, which they have done in the last, how many months now? Probably 4 months?
By-elections is different, because by-election is set by an act of Parliament. It's already provided for.
It
so
says if,
they
can make that decision.
There is a vacancy in a member of Parliament, elections must be done within a certain period
so that they can do.
So that they can do.
I'll skip Honorable Kaluma and come to Daisy. Is it true that the IEBC, as currently presently constituted, cannot make those fundamental decisions for the country, where some have argued, including making decisions on elections, even by elections?
No, by elections I think they can, as the Commission has said. But I do think anything that requires a vote within the plenary, they cannot do.
Like the budget?
Anything substantive that needs to be voted on, they cannot, because they don't have the quorum.
All right.
Yes? But on other matters, procedural matters, administrative matters, they can.
They're able to.
They're able to. But that problem is not caused by the commissioners. The problem has been caused by the failure of the executive to do what is required of them. When the commissioners resigned, the president was required, upon receiving the resignation, within 7 days to gazette. Yes, that is what the law requires of him. And within 14 days to empanel the panel to now begin the process of replacing those commissioners. So the lack of quorum right now that we see within the commission and the lack of its proper constitution is actually being politically manipulated.
You think it's intentional?
It is intentional, because the law is very clear on the procedure. Remember that the commissioners, they publicly resigned.
But for you to resign, you need a letter. So the argument is probably the president did not receive the letter of resignation.
Regardless, please remember that these guys resigned. They cleared with all the procedures. They cleared, and they even swore affidavits and that were delivered to court. They were actually presented in court stating that they had resigned. So the president cannot then refuse to accept those resignations. They have resigned, and so by law the vacancy has occurred. Therefore, the law requires that within 7 days those vacancies be gazetted, and within 14 days that the panel for the reconstitution or the replacement of those commissioners be done. That has not been done. And so I think what Chebukati could have done and should do actually to break the stalemate and perhaps force the hand of Parliament is under Article 163 of the Constitution, 163(6). He can seek an advisory opinion from the Supreme Court as to what does he do, because he is being rendered, his hands are being tied behind his back by a failure of an organ of the state to do what is required of them. So I think that we need to we need to lay the blame where it belongs.
Executive, and that's what you say.
Exactly.
That's what you say. But before you interject, the question I was asking is this time, even the 3 remaining?
Is it time
for them to leave?
Why? You see, for me, there's substantive issues that have been raised by the Auditor General. Procedurally, after every election, we should be doing an audit. Instead of the political class clamoring for a reconstitution of the commission, the first thing that we need to do as part of interrogating the conduct of the general election, we need to look into where those problems were. Okay. Because we focus so much on commissioners because it's a very political process. But we have an entire secretariat, much of which has remained largely intact since we've been, doing these changes that have been going on over the years. We need to find out what the problem is, because elections are a very critical part of our democracy, and it's not just about politicians. It's about the people expressing the will for who is going to administer the state on their behalf. But we seem to be missing the point here that we make it after every election, we want to change the composition of IEBC, and our politicians, the real reason they want is they just want to have an arbiter that makes it that much easier for them to win. They want people who will deliver a victory to them.
We'll talk about that because Honorable Kaluma has a proposal that we'll talk about later. But just on my question, because he wants to interject on the same question, is it time for political? Because we've had a lot of political rhetoric, we had a lot of politicians saying, what is Chebukati still doing? And last Friday when Chebukati fired Chiloba, everyone said even the 3 should now leave. It's time to leave. What are you still doing in your offices?
Yes, approaching last elections, we had a very weak legal framework. Because for one, the procedure for appointment of the commissioners is not in the substantive part of the Independent Elections and Boundary Commissions Act, but in a schedule. And when you put a matter in a schedule, it means you are giving room for politicians to play with it. And what we did, if you looked at what we did by that law, is that we formed a selection panel only to institute the Chebukati Commission. We never contemplated a commission after Chebukati or these vacancies. And you'd question why politicians in a negotiated process chaired by those good lawyers like Iraitu and Rengo would do that. So we started on that basis. The problem we have now, Ken, is that we are blaming wrong people for a problem which should be blamed on, to me, the President and Parliament. People are now saying that the 4 commissioners having left office, the President ought to have declared those vacancies immediately. The question is, borrowing from what Daisy is saying, and I agree with that in totality, is that the electoral process is a very critical process. It's not a process you want to do when the mood in the nation is foul. We had a very long and emotive electioneering period. Really, to begin thinking about the law around elections, around IEBC, we needed the nation to come. Because the idea of the President gazetting a vacancy is really not to accept resignation. There is nothing like accepting resignation in law. When a person resigns, they have resigned. Actually, you would be turning them into slaves if you subjected the fact of resignation to your acceptance. What the law contemplated is that the President would gazette the vacancy, and that would kickstart the process of getting new commissioners to fill in the vacancies created. Now the question is, if the President declared those offices vacant without a legal framework to fill the vacancies, to what end would he be doing?
Is that the dilemma?
Is that the dilemma? That is the first dilemma. Now it comes then to Parliament. And I want to apologize to the nation. We've taken too long to fill this, understandably, because we also needed to come. We have now gone through handshake. We are at a level in the nation where we can objectively, debate matters, how to constitute an important body like elections.
That's an admission.
Yes. And I think it's an admission in part, but there are times we speak as leaders. It would have been in error, in my view, if this process started earlier. Let me confirm to everybody who is watching that really we should not go blaming Chebukati and the team. These other 4 commissioners resigned voluntarily. You cannot say because 4 have resigned, the others also ought to resign. We have procedures for removal of commissioners, and I think we must go into them unless there is a huge public interest as to why you should, push people out.
Okay.
So I would say that it is not a big challenge. I can confirm to you, Ken, with political goodwill, the issue in terms of the lacuna in law is a matter that if there is goodwill, it is one afternoon and then we sorted. And that is the prayer I would make to Parliament, that we seal this lacuna in law and we move forward.
Yeah, Commissioner. My take is it's true what they are talking about, the need to follow the law in terms of replacement. However, every other institution, it's about the people who are there. It's about the leadership of that institution. The institution is shaped by the leadership of the people in the institution. If you look at this current IEBC, and I really didn't want to talk about this, is you find a commission fighting itself. The first thing you look at is, why did the rest resign? 5 commissioners resigning is not a very simple matter. You must interrogate and say, why did they resign? You see, and because that forms the basis to go into the reconstitution aspect of it. And then you look at it, even after the 3 are remaining, they are still fighting among themselves.
Okay.
Why then would you say
are the 3 really fighting
audit queries? No, I mean between the commission and the secretariat. Yet this is supposed to be one team. Why would you say that there was an over expenditure? Yet in every election cycle, it's the commissioners who approve the budget. These people need to work as a team. Rather.
Because we haven't had the fighting, Commissioner.
The commissioners who have remained to serve at IEBC are not fighting. The problem at IEBC is a bigger politically created problem than you can imagine. I can tell you as a leader that I know, sitting in Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, that some political players convinced these 3 last commissioners to resign in the hope of appointments. And I'll be discussing those. That was the meeting you had in May, right? No. I will not tell you much, but I can tell you we know where these things are coming. You cannot say that there can be 2 centers of power in any commission or independent office within the meaning of the Constitution. If you look at Article 250 of the Constitution, which former commissioner was referring to, the commission is defined as the chair and the members of the commission. The secretariat, whether you are a CEO, whether you are a secretary, you are a staff, you are an employee. The problem at IEBC is that some people made Chiloba and the secretariat to think that they are at the level of the commissioners. And I'm happy he's waking up to the reality that whatsoever, he was the employee of Chebukati and his team. And of course he has to go, and he has gone. Okay,
I'd like to talk about the firing of Chiloba, but first, the conversation about if this commission should remain or not did not begin today. It began right after NASA won the Supreme Court contest. That's late August, I think 1st September. Let's take a look at this.
Before we can have a proper and free election, that commission must be looked into, and for proper elections to be held. I don't think that we will have that commission running the elections again.
We have no faith at all in the Electoral Commission as currently constituted. They have committed criminal acts. Most of them actually belong in the jail. And therefore we are going to ask for prosecution of all the Electoral Commission officers who have caused this monstrous crime against the people of Kenya.
Our view has been, from the past as it is now, that perhaps the United Nations must hold the next general election. But it cannot be Chebukati and his people, because these are already criminals who must be charged in a proper court of law.
Suffice to say, none of those speakers at that time have changed their mind. Although they're not speaking as much on what they spoke about at that time, but it was clear then that they don't value the input of this commission to any election, especially the 2017 election. So the question again is, they saw it then. Is it time also to reconsider? And what would be the reason why they will reconsider that stand? Just before we take a break.
Yeah, let me answer you. I told you of the weak legal framework under which we established this particular commission. If you look at the law relevant to the formation or composition of all commissions, the president is given a fixed number of commissioners, and he does the mere formal act of appointment. In respect of IEBC, out of the negotiated settlement, which some of us disagreed with, save that it was a negotiated political settlement, the president was given a pool of several nominees to cherry pick from. And what people have not cross-checked is that in as much as we had a selection panel with representatives from the majority and minority parties, who did the respective sides of parliament push into the commission? And if you looked at who were thought to have been pushed by one coalition, were they appointed ultimately? And that was the beginning of the problem. Okay. So that if you look at the grading of the nominees which were presented to the president, you will be shocked to confirm that the people who were dropped out of ultimate appointment by the president were actually the people who got the highest grading in terms of being chair and even members of the commission. Okay. And that is how the thing went. I would say things have not changed. But I'm saying we must objectively look at where we are going to as a nation going forward, and that we need to do it early, so that we take out the complaints you are having in the past, like the commission was formed too late and others. Let me agree with former commissioner on one thing. I've sat in vetting of commissions in Justice and Legal Affairs Committee for 6 years now. I've never vetted a weaker body of people than the IEBC commission, which was brought to us under Chebukati. Because the best were left out, because we allowed the president, who was an incumbent, to cherry pick.
But be that
those are the things we need to
be that as it may, the political process aside, I think it's also important that the conduct of the election be looked into.
Yes.
It's not enough that we keep renewing our commissions or revamping or bringing in new commissioners without looking into the issues. There are substantive issues here that have been raised by the Auditor General and by the audit report that Chebukati has cited. Now, for me, if we may speak of commissioners, as not being credible because, they've lost the confidence of the political class. But I think that if they are to be removed, we need to have a very clear procedure, and let us cite what the problem is. Let's look into it. Okay. We need to look at the procurement processes, because even those procurement failures, those interferences, the partisanship is all because of the political class. And it is the same political class, now handshakers, who are now telling us, let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. But what we are saying is this: we can't keep doing this, because what they do, when they are not happy with the result, what happens? They then begin to accuse the commission of ABCD. Okay. The commission is more than just parliamentary political parties, and we've had this discussion with you, because there are several other players. The biggest stakeholder in the electoral process is not the politicians, it's the people of Kenya, the voters. Okay? And I think that we owe ourselves that accountability. That quote you cited, we owe ourselves the accountability, and the first accountability starts with, let's do a proper audit. Yes. Let's look at all the maladministration. Correct. Let's look at the procurement failures
while they're in the office.
While they are in office, so that we are able to say.
The Supreme Court decision, by the way.
Yes.
Those
we're taking a break, but I'll allow you to comment on that.
Well, yeah.
On the fact that it started straight after they lost the petition.
Yeah, by the NASA politician. Yes. Of course, it was natural for them to react at that time, and as you said.
So you think they didn't mean it?
No, they must have meant it, because it's the first time an election is being annulled in Africa, and the second time in the whole world. And by the way, somebody ought to take responsibility for it.
Okay.
And NASA could not, of course, agree to go to another election with the same team. So that is where the problem is.
Okay. All right, time to take a break. We're coming back with further discussions. We want to discuss the resignations and the effect they had on this. Plus, we are also going to discuss a proposal that will see political parties agree in manner and get the commissioners they want. But it's a very radical proposal that is just on the floor of Parliament. We'll discuss it. But first, let's take a look at some of your feedback as we take a break. What do we have on Twitter? We have Frederick Okango, who is the Secretary General of Third Way Alliance. As currently constituted, IEBC can still perform their functions, including conducting referendum. An act of Parliament cannot be superior to the supreme law of the Constitution, or that is the Constitution. Makanji Thomas says, let Chebukati go to the Supreme Court and get clear legal framework on the way forward. Referendum is unstoppable. And finally, all right, we have quite a number. Some are on my screen. We'll try and read them after this break. But let's take a break. When we come back, we still have a lot to discuss with you. Stay with us and engage us on.
You should take advantage of the handshake. Mtuambie hii saba ilifanya nini, ilichukuliwa na nani, ni kwa nini tulirudia kura, na ni kwa nini Wakenya wanatumia pesa nyingi hivyo kufanya kura ya pili.
Every presidential agent had a secure access to the server. Na jambo hili tumelizungumzia muda mrefu, tumeweka katika dailies, tukaeleza vile ilivyokuwa, lakini baadhi ya viongozi wamenieleza ya kwamba wajua, tukishindwa alafu tunyamaze, wananchi watatuacha.
Kama makomishna wanne wameresign, wameenda nyumbani, Bwana Chebukati, where are you going to how are you going to conduct your work when you do not have quorum?
Constitutional commissions should have minimum of 3, maximum of 9. I think as we are here, we are not 2.5. Really? So we are completely 3. We meet the constitutional threshold.
Wakati kwa ofisi tunaongea kwa boardroom, wengine wanaenda nje wanapiga simu kwa some people, tuseme nini, huyo chairman anasema hivi, niende niseme nini. Sasa wale watu walienda, wakati tumesema we tuanze mambo ya audit, walitoroka wakaenda. Na wale ambao walihusika na kufanya gharama ya uchaguzi iende juu, hata kama ni nani, hata kama ni staff, hata kama ni commissioner, hata kama ni mimi, nasema hatufai kuwa wa Kenya. Kama ulihusika, unataka uwe ndani, ukae ndani.
Right, very, very interesting observations there. I think this comes back to the question that everyone has asked, you know, why don't you
I do not feel that my contributions were making any impact really in the process in Kenya.
Consequently, we regret to announce our resignation from the Commission with immediately effect.
Okay, with immediate effect, and they resigned. I think that's why we ended the conversation, the fact that the commissioners have left, and now there is the call for these other commissioners to also leave office. But let me talk about substantially what's important to Kenyans right now, which is if they are able to do this, and that you have discussed. So the other question now is, ladies and gentlemen, going forward as the IEBC, with the resignation of, with the firing of Chiloba, is it a commission to be trusted? Can it be trusted? And the reason I'm asking this is because of the reasons canvassed by Chiloba in his letter of resignation. One, he says he was not afforded a fair opportunity. And I don't want you to defend, but this is what we have to talk about. He was not afforded a fair opportunity to defend himself. Secondly, it was stage managed from the beginning. That's why they fired him, so that they could find reason and justify his removal. And thirdly, there's something else he said, but even that is enough to begin with this conversation.
Well, let him canvass those issues in court, because he has now been fired and he has taken the matter to the Labour Court. So let him canvass those issues, let the court arbitrate and find whether at all there's any merit in what he is saying. Okay? But for now, as things stand, he has been fired. But having said that, let us not forget that the day-to-day operations and running of the commission is done by the Secretariat.
Including procurement.
Including the procurement is done by the Secretariat.
But the Secretariat is not the CEO, I mean,
the
alone.
CEO and the Secretariat.
Yes.
The commissioners are a policy and oversight organ. Okay? And so, a lot of the problems that we are seeing right now and the questions that are being asked not so much of the commissioners, but of the Secretariat.
Okay.
And him, as the CEO of the Secretariat, he cannot absolve himself from blame. So he is now fired, and he has been fired, really. there was a lot of contention between him and the chairman. Even throughout the electoral process, there was no harmony between them. And in fact, that disharmony was also part of the perception problem that IEBC were having. Okay? So I think that even in terms of undermining, you know, he failed to realize that he is actually an employee and that the commissioners are an organ that was above him, and he seemed to run the commission as the person with the final say. And so it was creating a conflict, and that's always a problem when you have conflicting authorities. You can't have
two centers of power.
You can't have two centers of power. Somebody has to be.
But where does that tie in with your earlier statement that they should be accountable within, not without? They should all be accountable. But Chiloba has left.
No, Chiloba has not. Chiloba has been sacked.
Yes.
He has not left voluntarily.
He has left how does complaining. How does he still answer questions?
He's still not. Listen, the fact that he has been fired does not absolve him from any criminality or any procurement irregularities that happened under his watch. He remains answerable. If at all those allegations can be proved, and I think I've also seen a news report where Chebukati has actually asked the DPP to institute investigations against him for the queries that are being raised in the audit and the Auditor General's report with regards to procurement. Now, I think that these are serious issues, because remember that Kenya's elections were the most expensive in the world. In the world.
But when you're being...
In the world.
Daisy, when you're
spent so much money,
I
yet
know.
We did not have clarity. We had a nullified presidential result, and we had a second presidential election that was by and large boycotted by nearly half of the country because people had lost confidence. It was not just a boycott call from the NASA brigade. It was also that people lost confidence in the process. And I think that that says a lot. And it's not something that we should take lightly. IEBC is now poised to undertake boundaries review. People are calling for a referendum. So this body is still the body that is legally mandated to undertake another election. An election which, by the way, is a critical part of our democratic process. Never mind that it is interfered with severally by our politicians. But it's a very important process. So I think that we shouldn't gloss over this stuff, and we shouldn't let the politicians muddy the waters. You know, we must demand for answers, we must demand for accountability. And I like what Chebukati has said, that even if he himself is culpable, then he should be jailed. Anybody who is found culpable, because we've had so many commissions. Commissioner Letangule's commission, they ate chicken. There is another group
not that one. That was the IEBC.
There were the people, this one that left before. There are people in jail right now in the UK. There are people in
the immediate commissioners after Chebukati.
Yes, but remember,
let me interject there.
You will interject, but I want to ask Daisy just one question.
I think she has talked a lot. You should allow us
to talk. I will allow you to talk. Just one more question. When you're doing the audit, do you tell me to step out and then you do audit, or ask me to be within the audit? So you ask me questions and I respond to them. Just
okay, wait, Ken, you're doing a he said, she said thing here. Chiloba is saying one thing. He's saying I was never afforded, right of reply.
Yes.
Chebukati is saying the reason why he's been fired is because when we were doing an audit, he did not appear.
Yes.
So this is a he said, she said. He said. So that's why I'm saying he's been fired. He needs to go to court, because do you want who do we believe?
Just interject then.
Well, first on the issue of about the firing, whether it was right or wrong. Well, as she says,
whether it was procedural or not right
procedural.
Or wrong. Yes.
Of course, Chebukati has been fired, and his recourse now.
Chiloba
is now in court. His recourse is in court, and I'm sure the courts will make the right determination. But this thing has been playing out in public, and we have all been seeing what has been happening. The first thing is, the commission, as we said earlier, is not properly constituted. This same commission of 3 people forms a disciplinary committee.
Exactly, that was my other point.
The same people form a disciplinary committee, hear you, then go and sit as plenary and dismiss you.
They made the decision to send him on leave.
The court will then adjudicate in that matter to say he was unprocedurally fired.
You can already see, even from a layman's, from even a person who doesn't understand the law, natural justice is not been done.
Okay.
I mean, the whole procedure was designed to bring this to an end. And after all, queries raised by an auditor are queries which will be answered by the commission, and they are supposed to be presented to parliament, those queries to be answered by all of them. And as I said earlier, even matters about the budget, and I will come to the expense of election, why our elections are expensive. The budget is prepared by the secretariat. It's normally approved by the commission. So the whole team owns to that budget. Now, after the budget, the commission cannot come and run away and blame the secretariat alone. They need to look at it. And coming to the expense of the elections in Kenya, you know, it is the only country where trust levels, we don't have trust. I have been to elections in every other country. I've been to Australia. I've been to UK. The election paper is a very simple paper in the UK, where we go and print our documents.
Even use pencils.
They use pencils. And so as what we do, we print our ballot like currency. So what do you expect? The cost goes high. The cost goes high.
Manipulation.
The issue about the BVR, those gadgets are very expensive. Yeah, and that's why the cost of election, because of our lack of trust.
But in those countries you're mentioning, they have learned to trust the institutions.
They have a culture of integrity. We have a culture of corruption.
Because of lack of trust. The expensive, we must then handle the expensive aspect.
Okay.
Well, no, why not deal with the culture of corruption first?
Let me clarify 2 issues. One is that this audit was not done by the commissioners. It was done by the Office of the Auditor General. And you remember when the audit process was going on, Chiloba himself went to court saying he had been suspended. I don't know whether you remember that. And the court okayed the audit going on as he stayed out. In fact, it came to a ruling against him in a petition.
That was the first to the Labour Court.
You remember that. So don't have the thinking that this audit was by Chebukati and others. Chebukati is now saying there is an audit. Anybody who is to blame should take responsibility. Number 2, there are some things which the commission can do in their number. And if you looked at the IEBC Act that we have, a committee is merely 3 of them. So the thing of sitting and dealing with Chiloba refusing to appear before them, they were still right, I can confirm to you. But we leave that.
But then who was to make the final decision?
Because they agree to suspend him. You sit, the 3 of you, then agree to suspend me, then you suspend me, then say, you invite me to come and sit before you, then you make a decision saying that I did not appear before you.
A committee.
Not only that, a committee's decision must be ratified by the commission.
Let me tell you.
The whole commission?
No, by a quorum of 5, which is not there.
Which is it's a big decision to make.
Bonaletangule is talking on the law they left. That is not the current IEBC Act. Go back to the IEBC Act, and if you find any malfeasance, you will give it to Chiloba as a defense. But I can tell you, even the issue of that quorum, Ken, has been determined by the court. I don't know whether you remember so. There is a high court determination, the one which said there is a quorum. If there is challenge to quorum, I mean, let people appeal or go for referral to the Supreme Court, as they're suggesting. The problem with Kenya is dishonesty. And I think that is what, Madam Daisy is calling corruption. I mean, look, we will invest in technology. But you are still told a place like Homa Bay, a place like Kisii, you cannot transmit things on network. I mean, you're joking. And you've engaged Safaricom, you've engaged Telcom, you've engaged Airtel. It is dishonesty, and this is one of the dishonesties I'm proposing to deal with when you come to my legislative proposal. Because people misbehave in the commission hoping some people will appoint them when they vacate office. So this is the problem we have in the country which we have to address.
Yes. Okay. You made your point, right? We can move on.
All right. To another
let's we are done with the issue of Chiloba because it's not our discussion. He can handle it at the Labour Court. I'd like to talk about 2 proposals that are in Parliament. The proposal 1, to have Parliament
the
Parliament's life extended, and in effect extend the period where the presidency also, the term of the president is extended. And I'm wondering, one of the parliamentarians made a proposal about this, and he said this section of the law can be actually amended in Parliament. Let's listen to him first.
We have a requirement that our budget cycle, we read our budgets at the time of July, and that particular time, Mr. Speaker, Parliament will be campaigning. Nobody will be here. Will not get the quorum. This is not a referendum issue because it's within the 5th year. We are not extending the term of the president.
All right, I'd like to discuss that, but interestingly, Ezra Chiloba has sent me a text here that I'd like to read. He says, Kaluma is wrong. Chebukati carried out an internal audit. That is the basis of my sacking. Auditor General report came out later. He's watching.
Let's leave that.
That's on Kaluma.
I regret my brother. You know, Chiloba was, we were with him at the law school. And I want to say that we do not want to go deep into the matter in a manner that may prejudice the petition he has in court. I wish him well in court, and I hope he says that in court. Yes.
And that concludes it?
Yes. So on the issue on
election change of election.
Yes. On what I've seen that member say about moving
Chris Wamalwa,
moving the election date from August to December. And he says that it's not a referendum issue, is clearly wrong. If you look at our law, particularly Article 255, which talks about issues, it talks about two aspects which go into referendum and those which Parliament can deal. By moving election from August to December, you are extending the term of the president by almost 6 months, and the term of Parliament as well by 6 months. What is the effect of that? The effect of that is that you are extending the term of the president, and that means it's a referendum question under Article 255. It's a question which must be taken to the people, because you are fundamentally changing the term of the president and that of Parliament. So that aspect, you cannot run away from it. It's clearly in our law. It's a referendum aspect, and it must go to the people.
But how misinformed would a member of Parliament
I think he didn't read the law. The Supreme Law is clear.
Well, I let me say, first of all, I don't support completely anything extending the term of these people and anybody. I mean, I really, parliamentarians are always looking for lifelines. But I do think that there is a way that they can get around it, because the president's term is not fixed. It is fixed to when the president is sworn in and when the next president, when the next person is sworn into the office of the president. So knowing Kaluma, and you know how lawyers know how to look for loopholes, because that's what it says, 142, concerning the term of the president. The president,
the term is tied to the term
of the member of Parliament. Yes, that is the only thing. So by so doing, by them talking about extending the term of the president, it's a term of them trying to extend their term of Parliament, because the election happens at the same time. So that way, that automatically becomes a referendum issue.
But how would they go around it?
See, by saying that they want to extend the term of the president, so by so doing, they say they cannot. They will try to look for it,
and that is what for president. So
exactly. So they use the president to extend theirs.
But it still has to go through a referendum.
That's what they're trying to get about by citing the term of the presidency, which is not tied, which is not fixed. But you see, the term of office is fixed to Parliament in terms of when the elections are held.
Ken, we should not always be just thinking of negatives about
Parliament.
In fact, they always complain about us, but they keep re-electing us. Why don't they run and elect themselves?
Well, we have already, we are not going to go into that.
Is that in Parliament, even within the context of this bill by Honorable Chris Wamalwa, we have divergent opinions. I wish you looked at the debate we had at the second reading. I personally opposed, this particular, bill, but on my own reasons. Because you see, Chris is telling you there is a budget cycle, there is academic calendar. My position is that when you make a constitution, it becomes the Supreme Court. I mean, the Supreme Law of the land, and it proclaims so. you need to reorganize the society to fit into it. You don't amend it to fit into the society. We should have reorganized, and indeed we have done the reorganization of the budget cycle. This thing about academic calendar, if you look at the British American system, their first term begins in September. So we should reorganize the academic calendar so that it fits into the new constitutional requirement. And remember, Ken, deciding that we move from December, which was our traditional election month, back to August, was a very
well thought out
debated
and very well debated.
And if you looked at the Boma's documentation,
it's clear.
You will be discouraged from changing that date.
Okay. Okay. And obviously now I need to go to the other discussion, but I don't want to jump. We'll jump after the break. I want to talk about just briefly the fact that this is being brought in Parliament. I mean, it's being brought in Parliament by a parliamentarian, and a lot of Kenyans talking about it are looking at the kind of misinformation, because from where you represent, people don't understand that.
Strangely, do I tell you something? I was part of the members of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee that went throughout the country seeking public views on this bill.
Okay.
And by the way, I would think due to misinformation or failure by the citizenry to reconsider or to consider deeply why the date was moved from December to August. But the majority of the people were saying, we are okay with December.
But it's because they were also mobilized.
Because they were mobilized, number one, in terms of our public participation. And we highlighted in the report of JLAC, in as much as we were going with their view, that it was clear to us that people were mobilized by different sections. So that the information we got from the general citizenry was not a fair sample and an informed one of what Kenyans would ordinarily think.
If I was asked based on experience and on the elections that I have been alive, the December election was much better than this.
Why?
No.
Because it gives a lot of time, even schools and all.
Not really.
But that is not true. First of all, it's the festive season. It's actually very disruptive.
But it's only
Many
once
people
in
tend
5
to
years.
register.
But it's
People
only
tend
once
to
in 5
register.
years, Daisy.
People tend to register in the place, you know, where either where they work. But most of the time, you go up country. People are on holiday.
But it's once in 5 years.
No,
Daisy.
but
it's
you
not
know,
every year.
no, we've always listen. That has always been the argument. But they also say the school calendar. But assuming we do it in December and we do runoff, like what happens?
It goes to January.
It goes into the school calendar. As in, what I'm saying is, there will never be an opportune time. If never is the time. And I like what Kaluma has said, that we make the supreme law and we re-engineer the society to fit into it. The problem is, when our politicians don't like anything, they just change the law. They want everything to suit them.
And that's why we made it harder using Article 255.
Yes, for them to amend.
Let me tell you something, Ken. We may go around this August and December date, but let us make some things clear. One is that August is a school holiday, just as December. September begins the term just as January after December.
Yes.
So the idea of school calendar does not come in.
The biggest, it's the propaganda you've bought into it.
Okay. The biggest reason as to why we moved the election date into, to August from December.
And put it in the constitution.
Yes, one or two. We had a problem in this country where, more particularly, the population that migrates into urban areas to vote, during December they've
all gone home.
They will either vote for a leader whom they don't then live under.
Yes.
And they come back here in Nairobi and other centers living under a leader who cannot be accountable to them because they never elected those leaders. So we wanted this to be a true participatory democracy. So that you are where you reside and you vote for your leaders there. But the other big reason, and I think this one was the larger thinking, is that, you know, our electioneering actually begins in January. It hits up at the beginning of that year. We did want a situation where if you had petitions, you have fresh elections or repeat elections like we had in the first one, it cuts through 2 years. So we wanted a situation in which you start at the time within the election year. That would enable you to deal with disputes, first elections and everything by the end of that year, so that when you are opening a new page the following year,
you're done with it.
You are done with it.
Commissioner.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree?
Actually, I totally agree with his reasoning about the death, and it's very it is very convincing. The reason why we need to hold on to the August debt. And more fundamentally, our legislators need to be educated. I think they need to seek guidance from the Attorney General before they rush talking about amendment by Parliament. If they read that 255, they know clearly they cannot amend that particular provision on themselves.
You see,
He's a lawyer.
They go round. They use
the provision. I imagine we'll be voting tomorrow. I've just cited the debate.
Okay.
So the idea that is being purveyed, in public media, that we have an ignorant parliament is not true, really. Some people support it, and
is the vote
and
that
we'll
will
vote
decide.
tomorrow.
All right, a good point to end the discussion. Let's take a look at some of your feedback on Twitter if we have them, so that we take a break. Right, Kibi Eliud says, why is it hard to have free and fair elections? Or he's saying why it's hard to have free and fair election is because of the struggle between the status quo and the reformers, and changing commissions won't help a thing. It goes back to your point. There's a problem that we should be handling. It's not after every election we should get them. Actually, that's something I wanted to talk about. Every 5 years we get them out. Jacob Ambere says, as currently constituted, IEBC Kenya needs overall changes in the commission and secretariat in grassroots. Referendum and 2022 election credibly gonna be questionable, or others may not participate into it. The fears, just building the fears of Kenyans. And we have another one. Despite consistent polls every 5 years since 1920, the country has not found a way of solving election-related issues. This has resulted in attacks of the electoral agency and its officials. It matters not how many times we change the commission. It matters not how many times. And finally, Peter Santoni says, I don't support IPPG, which we are discussing next, because it will just strengthen the political influence on how the electoral body operates. I still believe that the IEBC will one day be independent. All right, those are your views, and I have one here that I have to read. Kelly Obalu says, ex-IEBC chairperson was frustrated and treated with disdain. Whenever he may be, he is laughing. The problem of IEBC Kenya is politicians interfering with operations of the body and making commissioners have fights. And the picture right there is for Isaac Hassan. He may be laughing. All right, that's a good point to take a break. When we come back, we'll discuss one topic that is just been proposed, and it's a topic that is likely to inform a lot of discourse in the coming days. Let's take a break. No. It's the IPPG. Okay. Yes, we're coming back with it. And welcome back to Sidebar. And let's discuss about the proposal for the IPPG. This is not making a case for you. Before we do that, Ruto Festus agrees with the Daisy. He says you put it very clear that our MPs will always amend the law to suit them. Even these changes on election date is not anything to do with the presidency. It's just about them. So Festus agrees with you. Let me bring this proposal. You're proposing a sort of IPPG arrangement. The last time we saw it, I think, was before 2002 or 1997. Which one? It was 1997.
IPPG was instituted in 2005. In terms of elections, we implemented it first in 97.
97, all right. Then, so let me give some of the facts of what you want with this. Your proposals. You're proposing that the majority party has 2 members representing in the commission, 2 female and 1 male. No, 1 female, 1 male. So is the minority party in parliament. And then you're proposing that a senior council nominated or elected by LSK. So they are a total of 5. Right? And what is behind your proposals?
Ken, every election since 2007, if you put on average, we are losing on average 1,000 Kenyans out of a process that merely should enable us as a people to establish the leadership of the country, each time. I am a lawyer. My training largely is in law, democracy and governance, matters democracy. I've observed elections around the world. I've done my studies. Former commissioner will tell you in so many countries we traveled together with them. If you look at the modern trend across the world, and there's something I've mentioned in the memorandum to the bill. Go to the United States of America. Look at the composition, current or before, of the Federal Election Commission. You'll find 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans. In fact, they are not even obsessed with these odd numbers we are obsessed with. And do I tell you something you didn't know? The chair of the commission is a person who came from the Republican, appointed by Obama upon formal nomination by the Republican Party. If you go to the European parts of our world, from the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and others, it is now accepted that instead of pretending that there are people outside there who are politically unbiased, let us agree that the best way to secure independence within an electoral body is to have people who are partial and they are known. And if you look at their electoral commissioners, I'll challenge you to go and Google and do your research. They say this is Republican, this is Democrat.
They're very deliberate about it.
Yes, this is independent. Because they recognize the pretense we are having that you have some individual who is politically impartial somewhere is not there. Indeed, former commissioner will tell you that even the commissioners of IEBC vote for particular candidates during elections. I was saying, let us stop unnecessary experimentation. We did one with the IPPG. And I'm not going strictly the IPPG way. I think mine is a refined form of it. Okay. You remember when we had the IPPG in, was it 1995? People will tell you about the 97 elections, Letangule, and they'll say President Moi won. That was the second term he was going to serve under the multi-party democracy. Everybody will tell you the opposition lost that election because they were divided.
Yes.
Not that there was rigging, despite Moi being president, because the commissioners came from the various political formations. When you look at the elections in 2002, Ken, and let us think about our country deeply, depoliticize issues, elections, and think of how to secure, it firmly. President Moi was supporting our current president, but Kibaki won without much campaign. Look at what happened to the country in 2005 when we had the referendum. Again, we had a referendum in which nearly all Kenyans agreed the process was free and fair, and the direction the people wanted about the constitution was expressed. When you come to 2007, because then President Kibaki interfered and decided now to unilaterally appoint commissioners. You remember? We have so many people dying. We had the international community having to step in to save us from collapsing. I'm saying one simple thing. Let us not pretend that we have people who are, politically unbiased. Let us agree that political parties or formations is the way of the world. Let us agree that either way, when any Kenyan is voting, you are either voting for a candidate who forms the government with the majority party or the minority party. That is how our governance structure is. Okay. And I'm saying a simple thing. I'm not saying it is members of parliament who are going to be appointed. There is no need for these unnecessary experimentations. Let us have the majority side or coalition of parties within the majority search for commissioners who qualify under the Constitution. And not under the Constitution in Article 88, active politicians cannot be eligible for elections. Go to the minority and pick them. In terms of the Law Society of Kenya, I'm only bringing it to the extent that we are obsessed with odd numbers. Okay? And I'm saying, even at the level of the Law Society of Kenya, and remember they have some public duties as a statutory body, there is a category of distinguished lawyers. Currently, my brother will tell you that they cannot reach even 15. They have that distinction. And we can have the entire membership of the Law Society elect, one of them to make representation there. Why am I saying so? If he goes and misbehaves, we strike you of the role of advocacy so that you have people who can fall. Let me tell you by ending, because this is my matter, Ken. The only country in which we have this animal called the selection panel currently under progressive democracy is South Africa. But again, look at their Elections Act in terms of how they institute the selection panel. The chair, the law says, is the president of the Constitutional Court. So it's somebody who can go back to when they give you wrong people. The other two are the equivalent of the ombudsperson. They call them the public protector in South Africa, and then somebody from the Human Rights Commission there and Gender Commission 3. Okay. Now, if you came to Kenya and tried to adopt that mode, look at even the composition of those commissions. You'd fall flat. So I'm saying let us avoid pretense allow
Let's be real and
political
deliberate
information
about it.
to give us
We
commissions.
had to give him a lot of time because it's his.
Whereas
Yes.
Honorable Kaluma here is making a very persuasive case, and it is his matter in Parliament, and he's pushing it, and he's justifying through what has happened before. But remember, in our case, we had the Kriegler Commission, which looked into our history. It looked into our past conducts. And that Kriegler Commission then recommended the way forward. And if you look at the recommendation of the Kriegler Commission, and some of them have been implemented, they have worked for this country. And so what am I saying? If I have worked in the IEBC for 6 years, and in that commission, we came from different background. Why? They got it right then, because the selection panel, and that's where Kaluma comes in his last remarks to talk about the selection panel. Where we need to strengthen is the selection panel. It's a panel which must be very strong in all aspects of professions, so that they are able to identify who is a good lawyer to bring into the commission, who is a good financial background, because we must have somebody who understands finance and accounting. It's only the selection panel which can be able to give us the right people.
Okay.
And I'm saying, if then we follow what Honorable Kaluma is proposing, that political parties bring people on board, I'm telling you, we will have a very bipartisan commission. A commission which will be divided right in the middle.
But even without politicians are already divided.
Let me finish. Because
you need
I want to justify
partisan
a very bipartisan commission.
Yes.
A commission which will not be agreeing on any issue at all on the table. Because they are always be reporting to their political parties, and then come and advance issues of the political party within the...
Which is already happening even without that.
No.
I mean, Chebukati said it, that he goes to a meeting where people have already formed their opinion.
If you allow me to finish,
yes.
If you look at the Isakasan Commission, we came from different backgrounds, and the commission was completely cohesive. And I think that may have something to do with the panel which then brought us together.
Cohesive wrongly.
It was very cohesive. Yes. No, you can't say that. Because a commission which is leading the country in terms of bringing governance must be a commission which does not report to political parties and come with divergent views. And even if we do that, for example, and election results are announced, and it's against a political party B,
you think they can still differ?
That commissioner, the two commissioners who reporting to that political party B will disown the election results. Okay. And what will be the effect of a commissioner?
But that is the pretense.
I will explain.
Can Daisy speak?
I think to me, the way forward is still what we are doing. But then let us strengthen the selection panel.
Okay,
and I agree with this proposal that we even need to bring maybe the head of the Supreme Court to be the chair of that meeting, and we bring
the persons, and at the end of the day they have political interests.
Exactly.
You know, Daisy.
Well, I want to agree with Commissioner Letangule.
Thank you.
And I want to say this, and I said this to Kaluma, that it is not only parliamentary political parties that are stakeholders in the election. We have independent candidates, we have other parties. Remember that we have other political parties that are not parliamentary, so we have non-parliamentary political parties. But having said that, the examples he has cited, and I've told him, we are not America, and we are not Australia, and we are not Great Britain.
We are not the entire world.
Because many of these countries have very well established political parties with very clear ideologies. We're still struggling with our political parties where they still remain special purpose vehicles and they are owned by individuals. So we don't have a good political culture. The other thing is, remember that in those countries that you have cited, they have also very clear laws that they follow. The problem that we have in Kenya is a culture of political impunity. We have impunity where politicians do not follow laws. The political parties do not even follow their own laws. They don't follow their own nomination rules. They don't follow their own manifestos. They don't follow their own constitution. I mean, for instance, like now we have a governing party that doesn't even have a proper structure. There is nowhere where we know where exactly we can find to make complaints if we have any issues with a member of the Jubilee Party. So the shots are called by individual members. You see, the handshake is two people and they mobilize their troops. There is no ideological underpinning. There is nothing. So in the kind of culture that we have, we need to have a more stable panel of persons with integrity. Because you see, the problem here is also that we have people who are easily manipulable.
Yes.
No, easily manipulable.
Okay.
That actually are manipulated by the political class. Because even as they talk about this paneling of the last the panel that did this selection of the commission, we had the religious leaders, the politicians themselves, political parties had nominees on that panel.
But say they gave a whole bucket and the president.
No, but they had their own nominees. They had their own nominees.
And
while it may be
one side were dropped.
While it may be something that we could aspire to in the future, because when you have persons of integrity who cancel out the political leanings or underpinnings of any one commissioner, for now we really do need an independent body. We need persons of integrity who are able to be neutral arbiters.
How do we
get
panel?
Yes,
but the selection panel has did the work that you say.
I will say, listen, look, we had people like Rosalind Akombe. He may say that they are weak, they may have been the worst commission and maybe they were weak and they not the right people. But look at people like Commissioner Akombe. This is somebody who at some point stepped back and said, I can't do this. You know, this is not how I want to do my work. Now, that is somebody who... But
how many Akombes can we get in a commission?
We can get them. Are you trying to say that in Kenya we do not have persons of integrity?
No, I'm just trying to say that we have tried this method.
We cannot look at Kenya through the lens of the political class.
But we're just saying we have tried this method, Daisy, and we've not succeeded.
You see, the problem with you guys, also the media, is that you don't interrogate times gone by. You need to begin to interrogate what the politicians say. The politicians are the tail that wags the dog. They are the ones who set the pace, they set the discourse, and they try to fit us into their thinking.
Let me hear what he says.
Ken, I'm not strictly talking about political parties if you read that legislative proposal keenly. I'm talking of political formations.
Okay.
And I'm saying don't pretend with a curtain in between when in the end result you want commissioners picked from one side. And remember, we started this debate when we gave I spoke to the issue of the weaknesses of the legal framework, which led us to the current situation. Is it not true that the only uncontested elections we've ever had under multipartism were the ones under in 97 and in 2002 and the referendum? I mean, it is fact. But
let's also look at we must also look at the environment.
I'm the one talking.
No, but you are not going to start revising facts.
I'm the one talking. Daisy gets it wrong when he's saying it is political parties going to nominate. We are talking of political formations. And I'm saying the political formations we have in the country are either the majority side or they are on the minority side. And my reasoning is this, which I think you cut me short from doing. A commission, in terms of the role of the commissioners, as Daisy rightly said, it is policy and strategic directions. The actual work implementation is the secretariat. What I'm saying in short is that there is no way people from different political formations will sit together, conspire, and agree to favor one political formation.
That's a keyword. You're looking for a keyword.
I'm saying the best way to get a commission with an internal check. You know, if we clearly indicated, like in this other development,
internal check should be procedure.
There will be nothing. There is no way if he were commissioner nominated by Jubilee and I were commissioner nominated by NASA, there is no way we would sit and agree we are rigging in so and so and we are rigging out so.
Why not?
And the fact that you cannot conspire.
That's the keyword. He's looking for a keyword.
But remember, the interest in an election outcome sometimes are so critical. And if somebody is reporting to a particular political party, then that is where the catch is.
Exactly.
They will become biased. They will miss the point that the independence of being a commission as one. And therefore, they will have divergent views depending on the party.
But that independence has not been guaranteed. That's why we are here. If we've tried a method and not got it right, why are you
reluctant? We continue to work it until we get it right. We don't change it just because we are not getting it right.
Independence in IEBC is not the political independence of individual commissioners.
It should be
those
commissioners
vote for various candidates.
As do the police, as do security agencies.
It is the institutional independence that
that you're looking for.
And I'm
Okay.
saying you
How do you
secure
guarantee
that
that?
institutional independence.
You cannot care and then get
when you
institutional
send people,
independence.
when you send people,
cannot get
no,
institutional
I'm talking.
independence.
I'm talking.
If these nominees are from political parties. And one other thing that Kaluma needs to understand, in election,
all Kenyans vote for a political side.
Let me say,
This is
in
true.
elections,
Police do.
the stakes,
Are they partisan?
are not
Yeah,
just for
you do know.
politicians. The stakeholders in elections are not just political parties.
I think
there are many
I think the
stakeholders.
point of
They
difference.
also to restrict nominations
No, but who's
of
saying-
commissioners from the political
Having a
party only,
political
then
leaning-
we'll miss the
let him
point.
I have
finish.
not
Okay.
said political parties will nominate members. I'm saying each political formation,
Which is
the
what?
majority side,
But it
no,
goes for
government,
politicians.
That is political
and the
parties.
minority side. They will not pick necessarily from among themselves. If
No,
Wetangula
necessarily,
is
which
good
means
on
they
matters
could.
elections,
They can, yes.
or Daisy is good as she is good, and from the NASA formation being on the minority, we believe that is a person who can serve in the committee.
Or she doesn't need to be from
She does
your
not
political
have
party.
to be.
But
It
she's
is the political formation nominating a person to serve.
But once
But
you
then,
nominate
but
them-
then listen, your argument is that they will cancel each other out, so that if
No, not cancel out,
if
yeah.
you're
Yeah, that's what I'm
nominated,
saying.
if you're nominated by a certain political formation, you will cancel each other out in the
They
event that
will
there's a
not.
rigging.
No,
So
no,
what does that
no, no,
mean
no, no,
in
no.
terms of then my independence? Because it means then I am affiliated
To
to
the
a
person
political
nominated.
entity. Because you know, having a political leaning and the fact that you vote one way doesn't mean that you cannot be a neutral arbiter. Judges
can I
vote,
answer your
but
question?
judges
Yeah.
they arbitrate cases on the basis of
Facts
facts
and
and
law.
and the law.
Can-
Give us an
So
answer.
Ken, the proposal I'm making is bold and radical. I want you to go and research and sleep over it.
no, we agree with what you're
I'm
saying
not
in the
saying-
sense
I'm
that
answering you. I'm not saying that commissioners will cancel themselves out. The problem with our electoral processes in Kenya is that there are conspiracies within commissions
If
which
then-
are formed.
If
you
then-
know,
if then
with-
we follow-
no, let
No,
me talk.
let him finish, then you can.
There, you know, when you tell me that technology is not available in Kisii or Homa Bay, and yet you are spending the billions we are talking about, what are you telling me? When I can call at any location. What I'm saying is that the interferences, more so with our presidential elections, are internal conspiracies because we have commissioners who are not identifying themselves and are not known to be identified with those sides. And what I'm saying is that stop the pretense that you have a commission or commissioners who are politically independent. Letangule, that is not, you know, possible humanly.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that when you have
Perception.
people whose political affiliations are known, you remove the possibility of conspiracies to interfere with the results of the elections. And that is why we have a problem. Full stop.
The electoral
Because
body-
there is no way I'll sit with the Jubilee commissioner if I were
agree.
another commissioner to agree to rig in President
un-
Uhuru against our
unless you are under handshake.
You see,
Yes.
Honorable Kaluma,
Commissioner.
you need to understand that this institution is a very critical institution, and perceptions is everything.
True.
If we have commissioners today reporting to what is talking about political formations, which is actually trying to say we will form coalitions of political
Yes.
parties to have a block in nominees to the IEBC, and then what will happen?
But it
We'll have a
happened before.
we'll have a perception where we clearly know Commissioner so and so is leaning to this formation, and the other one is leaning to that formation.
But honestly,
can I expose the pretense?
And that is not
When we
pretense.
formed the selection panel, which they are insisting should continue.
Yes.
For what
Should be
reason did we
strengthened.
say that the minority side are
James
nominating
Orengo.
two? Majority side are nominating two. We realize
It was a
that
political agreement.
Kenya is formed along some party lines. What then happened is that because we gave the president a pool to pick from, he picks people he's been told by the people in the panel who are affiliated to his side, and that is the tragedy we ended up with.
No, the tragedy
So
was
what I'm saying is that remove this curtain under which you hide saying there are people, even in the selection panel itself. I was debating some members of the panel across some media or earlier in the week. And they confirm to you that we voted for some presidential candidate against the other.
Okay.
Doesn't that influence bear on them when they are nominated?
Let me ask you a question. Are you suggesting...
So instead of pretending with a panel here,
and let's get it real from
let
the beginning.
The political formations nominate.
My question to Kalumba here is this. Are you suggesting that within the laid down law, because the elections are conducted within the framework of the law, not within the framework of partisan interests, are you saying that we cannot empanel a commission, appoint a commission that can be a genuine neutral arbiter? Because you talk about the selection of the two commissioners coming from here, and two people coming from one side of the political divide, but let's not forget, in the run-up to that selection was the tear gas Mondays and Tuesdays and everything, and so it was a truce. It was actually a political truce that was brought about, and even then, as you guys were having that discussion, this issue of IPPG came up again. It was rejected. Yes, it was rejected. Okay, listen. We cannot, the problem, let me, no, Kaluma, let me say. No, Kaluma, I've asked you, yes, but let me also say this. You answer after I make I'm making a statement now.
Okay.
I want to make a statement. Our politicians have difficulty in doing things in a new way. Over the years, and since independence, the politicians have been so used to manipulating the law to suit their own ends. We got a new constitution and new legislative frameworks so that we could guide this country along a different path. Because remember, 2007, the time that took us to a brink of total destruction as a nation, we said the problem is our laws, it is all this, okay? Now we have new laws. Our politicians now want to take us back to the old way of doing things because we have a political class that cannot work with the new order, because the new order removes their manipulations away from them. These people cannot operate within the confines of the law.
Okay.
They are so used to making the law operate for them and not for us. And elections are not about politicians. It is about the Kenyans, it's about the citizens. It's about
you
have to have a last word.
Elections are not about politicians alone. But yet everybody participates on an election and elects the side they vote for, including the so-called religious leaders. What I'm removing is this curtain we call selection panel. And what my friends are not answering, if you said you had majority side nominating people into the panel and the minority, you had civil society and the religious leaders who are the majority, why are you then not agreeing that you can allow the majority and all these sections to nominate people directly for appointment, instead of having them give us a pool of people from which an incumbent president also seeking elections goes now cherry picking? This is what I'm dealing with. So don't look at it in terms of our emotions against politicians. Let's think about the best.
My last take on this is that election is very critical that perceptions are seen from the word go. So that the referee of an election cannot be seen to be siding with a particular team. And that's where the danger is. Perception, the first thing when you bring commissioners who are allied to particular parties, then immediately
so the entire world is going the wrong way.
You create perception. Perception of bias.
So perception is important.
So what we need to get right is the selection panel.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
And once we get the selection
panel,
the selection panel,
this
then we'll be able to bring in people with the right caliber, with the right...
It's the same thing.
Why the selection
panel? Why the selection panel?
This is the question I'm asking.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have to end the show. Before we conclude, I'll give you a second each to finish on that. Let's take a look at this cartoon of the week. It's something we spoke about earlier, and I said we'll talk about it. All right, that's Chiloba, and then the IEBC server, and Chiloba before the media. Those are microphones and cameras, and then he is emptying the server before the media. First comment, Honorable Kaluma.
Well, we spoke to the matter of the necessity of audit, and I would say let us undertake this audit beginning with an analysis of the Supreme Court decision that nullified the election. We will then be able to identify the legislative weaknesses, the weaknesses, let me say in law, the administrative weaknesses, and have a better country. And that is the context in which some of us, instead of sitting back and waiting for time to go, is engaging Kenyans in thinking about how best we can, avoid the situations you're seeing in the cartoon.
Okay, Daisy.
Can I digress?
But you have to touch on that.
Please don't.
Yes. You have to touch on that.
I think what's coming out of that box is very clear. Those are the issues that we're dealing with. And the issues are really politically related. And I think that for me, it's very sad that our politicians continue to take us around in circles, dealing with issues around elections. We've just come out of an election. They are now changing the elections law. They are looking at 2022. They are looking at referendum. Kenyans are dealing with serious issues. Instead of Parliament concerning itself with the livelihoods and the problems affecting Kenyans, they are busy sideshowing, looking for how they are going to secure themselves in the next electoral cycle. If our politicians are not ready to work with the existing laws and the frameworks that are there, then I think they should resign and allow us to get a new crop of leaders who are ready to work with within the confines of the existing laws and the Constitution.
Looking at that cartoon and the emptying of the server, me as an election expert will take to mean that in every election cycle, whatever happens in an election, in the past election, always the commission audits what has happened earlier and identifies the weaknesses of the earlier system and tries to have a framework and the way forward. So I think what the IEBC needs to do now is critically look at its systems. What went wrong? Why was the election annulled in the first place? Why did we spend so much money? How can we cut on the budget? Those are the questions. Why are we not in tandem with the staff? How can we bring in some sort of unity among the staff and the commission and so guide the country? Because we need a commission which is giving the country direction, a commission which will be trusted. So they need to build on their credibility and their trust. And therefore there is urgency in fixing the IEBC whichever way it goes. Whether you are bringing in new people, do it now. Whether you want to disband it now and get it right. We cannot, what happened in the last one was bring commissioners a few months to an election, and that's very wrong. Okay. We need to fix it now. And I've been saying, we don't, actually by 2019, by June, we need to have had a way forward.
You agree with the timing of my initiative?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you an opportunity to close on this, and because this is your matter, you will go last. Let me begin with Daisy as we close. Yes, just summarize everything we discussed, especially this proposal by Kaluma.
I think that IEBC, the audit needs to be taken seriously. The DPP should investigate the claims that are being made. If there are people who need to be brought before the courts, it must happen. If IEBC is to be reconstituted or to be constituted properly, then let the law be followed according to the laid down procedure. We cannot continually change the law just to suit political whims. I completely disagree. We have very serious issues that need to be addressed in this country, and the so-called representatives of the people must, for once, try and stop representing themselves and their issues and actually deal with the substantive issues affecting Kenyans. Let this matter be done. It should be as a matter of procedure. We have 4 vacancies at IEBC. Let them be filled according to the laid down law. If the law needs to be improved on, then let
there
Parliament.
Is no law currently.
Then let the law, but to appoint the missing commissioners, not for us to keep doing this thing afresh. If you have a case against Chebukati, there is, and the existing commissioners, there is the laid down procedure. It is time for our leaders to begin to follow the law.
My final take is that Ken, I think the executive side of the government, the presidency and the handshake, which has just happened and which has brought everybody together, looks like now our political leaders are really together. I've seen the handshake has done wonders. If this handshake is to translate to something, then it should start with the executive not keeping quiet on this issue about the IEBC and their hearing about referendum. They need then to bring that handshake into addressing and fixing the commission. They need to do that. They need not to just keep quiet. The president is keeping quiet. The deputy is keeping quiet. the former Prime Minister is keeping quiet, and the rest of the political leaders. I think if there is something that the handshake ought to bring them onto the table, it is the issue of fixing our electoral system.
Okay.
Looking at it critically and giving direction as leaders of the country. They need even to guide Parliament. Looks like Parliament is lost. Everybody is coming with their own bills.
But Parliament is independent. We can't go there.
I mean, Parliament is whipped, and we must know that.
It shouldn't be, even if it's
they
not.
need to. When they were disbanding the commission that I was there, when they were telling us to leave office, they were united. They came together and they found a solution. And when they sit down in that committee of Orengo, Senator Orengo, and we said, yes, we have no problem. If this is the way and this is the will of the people, so be it. So they need then the same political leaders together with the handshake. I am emphasizing on the handshake, sir, because it looks like it is solving a lot of problems, both economic and now it should solve even this electoral
political
problems.
problem. Okay.
Yes.
You have the final word.
Even after Kaluma, there will be members of parliament and there will be politicians. This is even if Kaluma were replaced by Letangule or Desi. They will be called politicians. Let us learn to trust the leaders we elect to be thinking of what is right for the country. We cannot be a people who only see negatives. Yet when those individuals present themselves for elections, we select all of them against all other candidates. I want to say I'm the most popular person in our Bay Town constituency, and I'm not thinking about these things as Kaluma, but what can serve the nation.
Okay.
People of Kenya, if there has been the best moment after these elections to think about how to better our constitution and how to better the electoral process, it is now. If we started these processes early, there were still too much tensions in the country. Because of handshake, we have calmed down and we can objectively look at these things. I would request that we do not blind ourselves or bury our heads in the sand and say we can just be waiting up to a time when it is late to start these things.
Okay.
I have given a proposal which I've thought through. If there are, challenging proposals, let us think about them. Let us bring all of them about. If there are thoughts about what we need to remove from our constitution and what we need to bring in to improve it, let us digest these things objectively, not thinking Kaluma, but thinking about the good of the nation and posterity.
All right. Well said. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, lady, for that. And before we end our show tonight, let's take a look at a few of your feedback. We requested for them. We have to read. We read about 4. Let's begin with this. That's from Welimo Busuku. The problem is not the IEBC. The problem is that everyone is struggling to loot in all possible ways he or she gets. Now, politicians struggle hard to get to office to loot, and that gives the IEBC a chance to rig them in. That makes them corrupt. Next. Karuki Ngujiri says, even if Chebukati sacks Chiloba, politicians remain adamant that the commission is unfit to hold election. This means that Chebukati is also on check. I wish the commission will employ inner problem-solving mechanisms as their water is spilled. I think that's what I wanted to say. And Kibil Eliud says the proposal can't work in our political environment. It will cause chaos. I think we read this one earlier from Kibi Eliud. Let's see the last one. Mato Fisher says, the greatest mistake we can ever commit is allowing politicians to decide who becomes a commissioner in the IEBC. Surely you can't be a key player in a game and also key participant in constituting the body of referee. All right, that's just a few of your feedback. We still have a lot, and we'll be looking at them at the end of the show. But finally, the calls for the current IEBC to exit continues to grow, but they have made it clear that the three remaining commissioners, they say they are not pushovers and are not about to lose the fight to hold on in spite of remaining a skeleton. While they enjoy security that comes with the territory, others before them were not so lucky. For when the push to let go began, the die was cast. Let's go back to commissions. Now, December 17th, 2008, the headline, Kivuitu and his team sent home at last. That was the headline. This is after Parliament changed the constitution to disband ECK after intense lobbying. ECK was then replaced by an interim team of about 9 commissioners known as the Independent Interim Electoral Commission of Kenya. Now, a few days later, the headline, that is, end of the road for ECK as Kibaki signs bill. 5 months later, later, the headline read, poll chiefs walk away with 68 million shillings, but it's below the headline that captures more attention. Despite being accused of poor handling of a chaotic election, Kivuitu and his commissioners will cut off taxpayers' millions. Fast forward to August 2016, the headline, IEBC bosses to walk away with 200 million shillings in sweet deal. Election chiefs agreed to leave office as long as they are paid all their dues. October 2016, that was the headline, IEBC exit deal set stage for new poll chiefs. Now, the contention leading to their forceful removal from office was the opposition, which had said it had no confidence that the commission will deliver a free and fair election last year. Back to the Chebukati Commission. In May, when they appeared before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, where Peter Kaluma sits, that's the National Assembly, the members asked them to leave. They said they won't. And 5 months on, they are still in the business of the commission. A good place to end our show tonight. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you, my guests, for coming and sharing your opinions on this. And thanks to my team here for making this possible. Have a good night. We go right now off air, but we're still online, and the commission. Tragically, you're not on Twitter.
I quit.
And you quit Twitter.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for watching, and have a good night. We'll be back on Tuesday next week.